Okay, this one's an email from Dana. She said, I love coffee. I drink at least 2 cups in the morning and generally another in the early afternoon. And sometimes, are you smirking? Stop it.
That's my wife, God. Dana. It could definitely be her that wrote the question.
Yeah. She didn't email me, so I know her email address. Okay, so Dana said, I love coffee. I drink at least 2 cups in the morning and generally another in the early afternoon and sometimes another in the evening. My husband is worried that I'm overdoing it, especially since I'm pregnant, but I've been doing this since college. Do I need to wean myself off? If I'm sleeping okay, is there a downside to my 3 or 4 cups per day? So is your wife pregnant?
No.
Okay, then that's not her.
3 is enough.
That's a good question. I like coffee a lot too, so I'm really hoping for a good answer here. What you got?
Yeah, so the thing that jumps out, I would say, firstly, would be the pregnancy concern, because there's really not a whole lot of extensive, confident research done in, higher consumption of caffeine in pregnant women and, throughout different moments in time of the pregnancy. The stock recommendation is to try not to exceed 200 milligrams per day.
How much caffeine is in a standard cup of coffee?
So depending on, it just depends on how it's brewed.
Yep.
So like for brewed coffee, you're looking at anywhere from like 80 to 200 milligrams. And
wow. So it could get as high as 200.
Yeah. So I would say like maybe 100 to 150, something along those lines, like instant coffee, like a Keurig type coffee could have a little bit less. Obviously there's still like trace amounts in decaf coffee.
Right.
But the point is, it's at least easier if you're drinking a can of coffee or like an energy drink or something.
Those pre-made ones.
Yeah, you're able to see exactly what you're getting, and limiting that in pregnancy, I think, is the first safety concern, I guess, just because we don't know necessarily what's going to kind of happen. I mean, there are risks of, preterm births and low birth weights, those sorts of issues that are obviously complicated in their own right.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just be drinking too much caffeine, potentially contributing to something like this.
Fair enough.
So from there, we can, break down caffeine a little bit in, coffee and sort of the different places it comes from. So caffeine is a CNS stimulant, and it works, they think, just because the mechanism isn't perfectly well understood as is the,
That's
caveat
amazing.
For many,
like
many of those substances.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just as an aside, it is incredible that in today's modern society where we can send people to the moon and send electric cars to Mars, we don't fully understand how caffeine works. And not just caffeine, but literally 1,000 other substances and medications and all that stuff that we think we know. We're pretty sure we know. We're not completely certain that we know.
Like that's it.
That's
they are
amazing.
pretty sure about a lot of these, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And so mechanistically, a lot of this may not mean a whole lot to anybody, but it blocks the binding of adenosine to its A1 receptor, which then enhances the release of acetylcholine. It increases the cyclic AMP through inhibition of the phosphodiesterase enzymes.
Sure.
Increases cyclic GMP, increases norepinephrine relief increases norepinephrine release from the central nervous system, which is our fight or flight hormone.
Yep.
And also increases calcium release in the muscle.
Okay.
So that's skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, heart muscle, which can increase the contraction force and also the ability for those muscles to contract more frequently, potentially. So,
is that why I've seen performance athletes talking about caffeine as a performance enhancing drug?
Definitely. Yeah, plays a huge role in performance. But yeah, all of that is to say that it plays a role in, helping us stay awake.
Yeah.
Promotes wakefulness, alertness. It can increase like recall times of certain, like cognitive tests and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you. I was just going to ask for the non-pharmacist version of what does caffeine do? That's it. Okay.
Exactly. And most people understand what's happening. There's something like 85% of people consume caffeine or coffee, or at least like 100 to 150 milligrams per day.
Yeah.
So it's like the most widely used, performance enhancer.
Yeah.
I would say, which makes it sound bad. But calling it what it is, it definitely has that role as a performance enhancer, both cognitively and physically.
That makes sense.
So this might come as a surprise. So looking at some of like the safety information and the, safe quantities per day, not pertaining to pregnancy.
Okay, so pregnancy aside, you should keep it to under 1 or 2 cups if you can a day.
Yeah. So the FDA has established that upwards of 400 milligrams per day, which is about 4 to 5 cups of coffee per day, is generally safe.
Okay,
so
good.
that is a decent amount for
That's a lot
some
of
people,
coffee.
especially if you're, maybe a slow metabolizer of caffeine, or you just don't really drink that much caffeine. That sounds high. And many people may not need that or desire that much anyway. The lethal dose of caffeine is like, 50 times that or something crazy. And they've shown that upwards of a 57 milligram per kilogram dose has been fatal in some case reports.
Wow.
And so 57 milligram, the fatal aspect of this is not funny, obviously, but the amount that this corresponds to is pretty crazy.
Well, no,
So,
yeah, it's not funny that somebody would die, but the amount of coffee that you would have to drink
yeah.
to die from caffeine overdose is so absurd that it kind of is funny.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
Not funny. It's not funny,
57 milligrams.
but it's kind of funny.
Kind of funny.
57 milligrams per kilogram would, for me, 195 pounds or so,
Yes, yeah.
would be 50 plus cups in one day.
Okay, that's
And so
funny.
there are some days that, I feel like I could use 50,
50 cups,
like
yeah.
podcast days.
Yeah.
But rarely the point of even saying any of that is some people might be sensitive to caffeine, have a low tolerance to caffeine, but realistically, you have to drink a whole lot of caffeine or coffee to really have some sort of dangerous effect. So you kind of remember that if you maybe had a little too much, or you drank a cup that you forgot about,
Right.
and had
That's
another
happened to
one
me.
later. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's it
when you
can-
feel like you're going to die, it's okay. You're
Just
not going to die. Your heart might be racing, but take a breather.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The we talked a little bit about some of those benefits, again, enhancements in alertness and focus, physical performance. It can, I guess, help with weight loss sort of indirectly, as it can curb appetite potentially for some people. The other key points that I just wanted to broadly highlight,
Yeah.
you think of caffeine, you think about somebody who drinks a lot of coffee, you assume, well, their heart rate must be crazy. They must have high blood pressure. They must have all these cardiac issues potentially. Well, caffeine intake, especially in those that are fairly caffeine tolerant, there's not really a marked increase in heart rate. It can increase the force of each contraction, but it's not driving up heart rate. It's not driving up blood pressure, especially if you have some sort of baseline tolerance. Now, if you never drink caffeine and all of a sudden you jump to 400 milligrams, I mean, who's to say what that could cause?
Yeah, you might
But
notice that.
Yeah, but again, it's like you just assume, because of the nature of it, the CNS stimulant nature of it, that your blood pressure is going to automatically increase, your heart rate's going to be through the roof, when really it might be more of a mental
A
sensation,
psychosomatic
than
kind of
anything.
thing. All right.
From there, I think to go back to Dana's question,
Yeah.
we hammered
get
down on the
3 or 4 cups.
Yeah, we touched on the pregnancy portion. The other portion that jumps out, and this is really where we see issues with coffee and caffeine, is the evening consumption, or the consumption that occurs later in the day. I'm hard pressed to see really hardly any downsides with moderate caffeine intake.
Mm-hmm.
As again, they're not associated with major cardiac events. They're not associated with major cardiac issues, like, or these cardiac changes that might be of concern, like we mentioned. They've even seen that there's even an association that moderate consumption can be protective. And so, and then that brings in the whole argument of, is it the caffeine from coffee that's pretends more of these protective benefits, or is it the caffeine from a nasal spray? Is it the caffeine from an energy drink? It seems as though, if I were to hedge my bet, that probably the caffeine that you're getting from brewed coffee is probably going to be a little better.
Sure.
And even from a performance standpoint, it might work a little quicker, might work a little better versus, a low calorie or 0 calorie energy drink.
Okay.
Quite frankly, I don't understand why that is. Maybe because there's a whole host of other things that are added to the energy drinks, taurine, the 50 ingredients that are in there that are supposed to also help with energy. But I'm not super, super concerned with caffeine intake in general, again, unless this is masking something during the day, excessive sleepiness, excessive tiredness. I don't have a problem with it unless it's preventing you from going to sleep, or you're, too wired at night. Those are the biggest concerns, because as we begin to miss sleep, we know that comes with its own list of problems.
Yeah. You can have a lot of issues from that.
And so if you're consuming a little bit of caffeine or coffee moderately on a day-to-day basis, and you're shutting it down from anywhere from 6 to 8 hours before bedtime, and you notice that that's enough time that allows you to fall asleep normally, then it's not really a huge concern. There are some people that can drink their last cup of coffee at 4 and 5 p.m. and they don't have a problem going to sleep. That could just be reflective of the, differences in physiology and how we metabolize caffeine.
Yep.
So again, that 6 to 8 hour window is just a stock recommendation. You might notice that if you don't stop drinking it until 9 hours out, that you're still wired. So that's just a general guideline to maybe watch.
Fair enough.
So I don't know if you want to recenter me there.
Yeah, no. Bit. So as far as that question is concerned, Dana might want to cut back because of the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Should cut back because of the pregnancy. But as soon as that's over, knock yourself out. Your husband's wrong. That's
as long as you're able to sleep, you're getting quality sleep, as long as it's not affecting any of that.
Right.
Like she said, I'm sleeping okay.
Yeah.
Probably fine.
I love my morning coffee. It's just a great ritual. It's that wake up time. I don't drink the coffee to wake up. It just is the ritual and routine thing that I can do without thinking that I like.
Sure. I think, maybe this last point that I'll add might resonate more with, people in my demographic potentially, or those that are still serious about exercise, not age, I guess.
I was gonna say, what are we saying here, Dante? No, I'm not that much older than you.
I don't know, the CrossFit,
Go ahead.
Powerlifting, that sort of stuff. Old people, not the old head sitting to my left and right.
Yeah.
I feel like we're part of the era of the pre-workout supplements.
Oh yeah.
Where that's probably been around forever, but it feels like it hit while we were in junior high and high school. How hyped up can you get before a workout?
Yeah.
What's the best way to get the blood pumping and get the most out of this workout? I need all this caffeine every single day.
Right.
This is pretty stolen from the barbell medicine guys, really, because I've applied this to my own life. Not every single workout, let's say, is your most important workout.
Yep.
And so if you're to the point where you feel like you need to be taking caffeine every workout to get something out of it, that's maybe not that you have to stop drinking caffeine.
Right.
But that's maybe just a point of reflection to say, hey, let's try to reserve this for, the workouts throughout the week that maybe the intensity is a little higher, the weight's a little higher, you might need a little extra juice, or you reserve it for the day that, by the time Wednesday and Thursday rolls around, you've had a hard week and you need a little boost, reserve it for those days versus like, I need to be on 10 every single time I walk through that door. And if it's not a 10, then it was a waste and I failed and I need to go back to the drawing board, and it's this catastrophic effect because my mile time is slower and my weight's lower on the bar and all these kind of things. Like, not every workout is the end of the world. Play around with the different caffeine dosing.
Yeah.
Maybe push the dosing scale up a little bit if it is a more important workout, but don't be afraid to scale it back if it's just your everyday sort of thing.
But I think what you're saying works for non-performance athletes too, for people that well, I have to have my morning cup of coffee or I just can't be alert. I can't
Sure.
be awake. I can't be focused. What you're saying is that the effect of that coffee is not so significant, should not be so significant that you should be dependent upon it. And that if you find you are dependent upon it, that probably has something more to do with something else going on in your life. And
Sure.
you should probably consider that.
Sure.
And try and figure out what the actual issue is.
Definitely. I mean, and it's just like we all have the tendency to put undue pressure on ourselves. And yeah, I don't know if it's a lifting day that means a lot to you, or you have a competition coming up, or you're just ready to test something you've been working on.
Yeah.
Maybe, use the performance end of the spectrum in caffeine dosing. But right, don't put undue pressure on yourself. Don't push yourself unnecessarily. And if you're noticing that there's this increased need for it, like you said, there could be something underlying, sleep apnea, something to look at. Not falling asleep when you intend to. There's a whole list of things that you might want to look at.